Hello, listening squirrels. Time for chapter 5 of The Body in the Library. Colonel Melchett was facing a much annoyed hotel manager. With him was Superintendent Harper of the Glenshire Police and the inevitable Inspector Slack. The latter rather disgruntled at the chief constable's willful usurpation of the case. Superintendent Harper was inclined to be soothing with the almost tearful Mr. Prescott. Colonel Melchett tended towards a blunt brutality. "No good crying over spilt milk," he said sharply. "The girl's dead, strangled. You're lucky that she wasn't strangled in your hotel. This puts the inquiry in a different county and lets your establishment down extremely lightly. But certain inquiries have got to be made, and the sooner we get on with it, the better. You can trust us to be discreet and tactful. So I suggest you cut the cackle and come to the horses. Just what exactly do you know about the girl?" "I knew nothing of her, nothing at all. Josie brought her here." "Josie's been here some time?" 2 years, no, 3. "And you like her?" "Yes, Josie's a good girl, a nice girl, competent. She gets on with people and soothes over differences. Bridge, you know, is a touchy sort of game." Colonel Melchett nodded feelingly. His wife was a keen but an extremely bad bridge player. Mr. Prescott went on. "Josie was very good at calming down unpleasantnesses. She could handle people well, sort of bright and firm, if you know what I mean." Again Melchett nodded. He knew not what it was Miss Josephine Turner had reminded him of. In spite of the make-up and the smart turnout, there was a distinct touch of the nursery governess about her. "I depend upon her," went on Mr. Prescott. His manner became aggrieved. "What does she want to go playing about on slippery rocks in that damful way? We've got a nice beach here. Why couldn't she bathe from that? Slipping and falling and breaking her ankle, it wasn't fair on me. I pay her to dance and play bridge and give people happy and keep people happy and amused. Not to go bathing off rocks and breaking her ankle. Dancers ought to be careful of their ankles, not take risks. I was very annoyed about it. It wasn't fair to the hotel." Melchett cut the recital short, and then she suggested this girl, her cousin, coming down. Prescott assented grudgingly. "That's right. It sounded quite a good idea. Mind you, I wasn't going to pay anything extra. The girl could have her keep, but as for salary, that would have to be fixed up between her and Josie. That's the way it was arranged. I didn't know anything about the girl." "But she turned out all right?" "Oh, yes, there wasn't anything wrong with her, not to look at anyway. She was very young, of course, rather cheap in style, perhaps, for a place of this kind. But nice manners, quiet and well behaved, danced well. People liked her." "Pretty?" It had been a question hard to answer from a view of the blue swollen face. Mr. Prescott considered. "Fair to middling. Bit weaselly, if you know what I mean. Wouldn't have been much without make-up. As it was, she managed to look quite attractive." "Many young men hanging about after her?" "I know what you're trying to get at, sir." Mr. Prescott became excited. "I never saw anything. Nothing special. 1 or 2 of the boys hung around a bit, but all in the day's work, so to speak. Nothing in the strangling line, I'd say. She got on well with the older people, too, and the kind of prattling away had a kind of prattling way with her, seemed quite a kid, if you know what I mean. It amused them. Superintendent Harper said in a deep, melancholy voice. Mr. Jefferson, for instance? The manager agreed. Yes, Mr. Jefferson was the one I had in mind. She used to sit with him and his family a lot. He used to take her out for drives sometimes. Mr. Jefferson's very fond of young people and very good to them. I don't want to have any misunderstanding. Mr. Jefferson's a cripple. He can't get about much, only where his wheelchair will take him. But he's always keen on seeing young people enjoy themselves, watches the tennis and bathing and all that, and gives parties for young people here. He likes youth, and there's nothing bitter about him, as there well might be. A very popular gentleman said, I'd say a very fine character. Melchett asked, and he took an interest in Ruby Keene. Her talk amused him, I think. Did his family share his liking for her? They were always very pleasant to her, Harper said. And it was he who reported the fact of her being missing to the police. He contrived to put into the word a significance and a reproach, to which the manager instantly responded. Put yourself in my place, Mr. Harper. I didn't dream for a minute anything was wrong. Mr. Jefferson came along to my office, storming and all worked up. The girl hadn't slept in her room. She hadn't appeared in her dance last night. She must have gone for a drive and had an accident, perhaps. The police must be informed at once. Inquiries made. In a state he was, and quite high-pitched. He rang up the police station then and there, without consulting Miss Turner. Josie didn't like it much. I could see that. She was very annoyed about the whole thing. Annoyed with Ruby, I mean. But what could she have said? I think, said Melcher, we'd better see Mr. Jefferson, eh, Harper? Superintendent Harper agreed. Lord, I should have took a nap before I tried to read. Mr. Prescott went up with them to Conway Jefferson's suite. It was on the first floor overlooking the sea. Melchett said carelessly, Does himself pretty well, eh, rich man? Very well off indeed, I believe. Nothing's ever stinted him when he comes here. Best rooms reserved. Food usually a la carte, expensive wines, best of everything. Melchett nodded. Mr. Prescott tapped on the outer door, and a woman's voice said, Come in. The manager entered, the others behind him. Mr. Prescott's manner was apologetic as he spoke to the woman, who turned her head at their entrance from her seat by the window. I'm so sorry to disturb you, Mr. Jefferson, but these gentlemen are from the police station. They're very anxious to have a word with Mr. Jefferson. Colonel Melchett, Superintendent Harper, Inspector Slack, and Mrs. Jefferson. Mrs. Jefferson acknowledged the introduction by bending her head. A plain woman was Melchett's first impression. Then, as a slight smile came to her lips and she spoke, he changed his position. She had a singularly charming and sympathetic voice, and her eyes, clear hazel eyes, were beautiful. She was quietly but not unbecomingly unbecomingly, oh Lord, I can't, dressed, and was, he judged, about 35 years of age. She said, "My father-in-law is asleep. He's not strong at all, and this affair has been a terrible shock to him. We had to have the doctor, and the doctor gave him a sedative. As soon as he awakes, he will, I know, want to see you. In the meantime, perhaps I can help you. Won't you sit down?" Mr. Prescott, anxious to escape, and to Colonel Melchett, "Well, if that's all I can do for you," said, and thankfully received permission to depart. With the closing of the idiot, where that came from, and with his closing of the door behind him, the atmosphere took on a mellow and more social quality. Adelaide Jefferson had the power of cremating. What did I just say? Did I say cremating? Oh, Lord help. Oh, well, that's it. That's right. Had the power of, it's supposed to be creating. Ain't gonna cremate. It's separated it. Oh, Lord. A restful atmosphere. She was a woman who never seemed to say anything remarkable, but who succeeded in stimulating other people to talk and setting them at their ease. She struck now the right note when she said, "This business has shocked us all very much. We saw quite a lot of the poor girl, you know. It seems quite unbelievable. My father-in-law was terribly upset. He was very fond of Ruby." Colonel Melchett said, "It was Mr. Jefferson, I understand, who reported her disappearance to the police." He wanted to see exactly how she would react to that. There was a flicker, just a flicker of annoyance. Annoyance? Concern? He could not say what exactly, but there was something. And it seemed to him she had definitely to brace herself as though to an unpleasant task before going on. She said, "Yes, that is so. Being an invalid, he gets easily upset and worried. We tried to persuade him, that it was all right, that there was some natural explanation, and that the girl herself would not like the police being notified. He insisted. Well," she made a slight gesture, "he was right and we were wrong." Melchett asked, "Exactly how well did you know Ruby Keene, Mrs. Jefferson?" She considered. "It's difficult to say. My father-in-law is very fond of young people and likes to have them round him. Ruby was a new type to him. He was amused and interested by her doggone it. Sorry, something got in the way. Dictionary came up. Adelaide Jefferson struck now the right note. This business has shocked us all very much. We saw quite a lot of the poor girl, you know. It seems unbelievable. My father-in-law was terribly upset. He was very fond of Ruby." Colonel Melchett said, "It was Mr. Jefferson, I understand, who reported her disappearance to the police." He wanted to see exactly how she would react to that. There was a flicker, just a flicker Did I always say that? Of annoyance, concern, he could not, I think I did, he could not say what exactly, but there was something that seemed to him she had definitely, I already said that. Did I go backwards? Maybe so. Exactly how well did you know she isn't considered? It's difficult to say. My father-in-law is very fond of young people and likes to have them around. Ruby was a new type to him. He was amused and interested by her chatter. She sat with us a good deal in the hotel. My father-in-law took her out for drives in the car. Her voice was quite non-committal. Melchett thought to himself. She could say more if she chose. He said, will you tell me what you can of the course of events last night? Certainly, but there is very little that will be useful, I'm afraid. After dinner, Ruby came and sat with us in the lounge. She remained even after the dancing had started. We had arranged to play bridge later, but we were waiting for Mark, that is Mark Gaskell, my brother-in-law. He married Mr. Jefferson's daughter, you know, who had some important letters to write, and also for Josie. She was going to make a fourth with us. Did that often happen? Quite frequently. She was a first-class player, of course, and very nice. My father-in-law was a very keen bridge player, and whenever possible, liked to get get hold of Josie to make the fourth instead of an outsider. Naturally, as she has to arrange the fours, she can't always play with us, but she does whenever she can. And as her eyes smiled a little, my father-in-law spends a lot of money in the hotel. The management are quite pleased for Josie to favor us. Melchett asked, you like Josie? Yes, I do. She's always good-natured and cheerful, works hard, and seems to enjoy her job. She's shrewd, though not well-educated, and will never pretend about anything. She's natural and unaffected. Please go on, Mrs. Jefferson. As I say, Josie had to get her bridge fours arranged, and Mark was writing, so Ruby sat and talked with us a little longer than usual. Then Josie came along and Ruby went off to do her first solo dance with Raymond. He's the dance and tennis professional. She came back to us afterwards just as Mark joined us. Then she went off to dance with a young man, and we four started our bridge. She stopped and made a slight insignificant gesture of helplessness. That's all I know. I just caught a glimpse of her once dancing, but bridge is an absorbing game, and I hardly glanced through the glass partition at the ballroom. Then at midnight, Raymond came along to see Josie very upset and asked where Ruby was. Josie naturally tried to shut him up, but hang on just a minute. I think I'm going to have to stop there, y'all. I'm so sorry, but I'm so sleepy. And I bet I'm close to the end, but I think GrannyDee's going to take a nap before I can work on stuff in my cute little poo bag. But I really need to get back on this hat. I frogged it and was going to try to do that not slip stitch band. band that Sandra was telling me about, but I just love the looks of this. I just gotta get it. Take a nap first. Love y'all. Be sweet, don't be ugly. Bye.